Actualmente es director y fundador de un proyecto que se llama Bridge, que es un proyecto para construir un lenguaje de programación que permita programar en blockchain. También fue fundador de uno de los protocolos que más se usa para construir este mundo de filosófico, y por eso queríamos que estuviera con nosotros, charlar con él. Si tienen preguntas pueden hacerlas en inglés o en español, como quieran, como él lo acaba. Cualquier pregunta es súper válida. Y tal vez es un tema técnico, pero es un tema que nos va a cambiar la vida en la próxima década, y por eso es importante, sobre todo, que como creadores nos enteremos de lo que está pasando. Good morning, Chris. Thank you for being here.
Buenos días.
As you can tell, maybe this is the first time for many people here, the first time that they hear about blockchain. And I think it's a wonderful thing that you are the first guy to talk about this. It's like speaking with the expert firsthand. And I would like to start by asking you, what is Web 3.0? Why is it different from what we have now as an internet, and how blockchain integrates to that or makes it work?
So do we have 3 hours to explain that, or?
30 seconds.
Well, I definitely will take it longer than 30 seconds. Well, number one, just thank you all for coming. I really, really do appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I pour my life into this technology, and I love spreading the word. My goal at the end of this talk is for you to also be believers. Say this is something that is absolutely needed. So if I fail at that, yell at me, okay? Okay, so why Web 3? Why is it different than Web 2? So I see a lot of young faces out there, and probably all you've ever known is the internet. So you probably don't remember a time before the internet. But what the internet did is it brought the world together. It made it so that people could communicate cross borders. They could interact. They could build applications. All of the things that you see on the internet is because of these machines that communicate with each other. But the big problem with that is that you became the product. These large companies, Googles, the Amazons, the Microsofts of the world, they collected all of the money, they collected all of you as actually a product, and they became huge. They're the largest companies in the world right now. And to me, that's a problem. When the individual, the people that are actually adding and creating value to the product are just the product, and they don't really, they are making other people rich, I don't like that. Well, Web 3 is similar to Web 2, is that it connects the people of the world, so that it connects you to each other. But it doesn't require a middleman. It doesn't require that large company. It gives the ability to actually, for individuals to own their own data, be their own person, and be able to communicate with other people in a trustless way. That you don't need a Microsoft or a Google to confirm, yes, that what they said is actually correct. That is what Web 3 is. It gives the ability for individuals to communicate with each other without an oppressive overlord. You might not think they are, but whatever. That's what it is.
Okay, so we can grasp better the concept. How could work, for example, Facebook or Spotify if they were built in 3.0 web?
Yeah, so the way that it would kind of work is you yourself own your pictures, own your messages, own your data. This is yours. This is not built on a platform somewhere where there's a gate. It's not very easy to pull your information off of, say, Facebook and put it on, TikTok, or I don't know. I'm a big nerd. But because you don't actually own the data, it's theirs. Yes, you can export it and you can figure it out and all of that stuff, but it's a huge pain. But with blockchain, you could actually set it up where that all of the data is yours, and you could actually bring it from company to company or social interface to social interface, and they could use your data and provide you a better interface, but it's yours. And because this is actually built on a fair platform, you could actually make money on it. If you are generating followers, if people are consuming your content, you have the ability to actually make money on that content without having to rely on that third party.
Okay, we as designers or creators, we have that problem, and it is that we create a lot of content. We create music, images, designs, and we are doing that in a very fast pace, thanks to technology. But we have that problem. All that content goes to social networks and a lot of platforms, and we don't have control over that. Mostly over the price and how can we, and the way in which we build transactions and contracts with that content. Can you tell us more about how blockchain allows us to build contracts or sell or rent or even, I don't know, donate our work, and how could that be a new way of working as creators or being entrepreneurs in this kind of fields?
It's an excellent question. Who here have heard of things called NFTs? You've heard of them. So NFTs. See? Okay. A lot of people think of NFTs as people buying and selling internet pictures. Why? What does that actually mean? Like, why are they doing that? So that doesn't make sense. I can right-click Save As. Why would I pay money for this? Right? Like, you've all heard those things. Anybody that says that doesn't actually know what's going on. Because what an NFT really is on-chain ownership. It doesn't matter like what the ownership is. It could be of a digital image. It could be a physical product. It could be anything. What it is a immutable record. Probably none of you have actually bought a house yet, right? I'm assuming. But when you do buy a house, you get a title, and then there's a title stored somewhere, and then that says you own that. That's all an NFT is, except that it doesn't require a third party. You don't need to rely on the government. You don't need to rely on somebody else saying, yes, this is actually what it is. So it's a record on-chain that says, I own this thing, and it's a pointer to what that thing is. It just so happens right now, NFTs people are using these things for online digital images, pictures of monkeys. It doesn't really make sense. Now, one thing I'm going to actually, before I dive into deeper about like how you could use NFTs, I'm going to kind of talk about why people are spending a lot of money on NFTs, because that's one thing that you probably understand is like, why the heck is someone spending $1 million on a picture of a monkey or a pixelized profile picture? Why would they do that? Sounds weird, right? But the best way I can actually describe this is, you guys know like Gucci and very high-end purses or clothing or cars. Are those things really worth 100 times more than a purse that you can get outside? No, they're not. But why are you buying those? You're buying them to be part of a club. You're saying, I am part of the Gucci club, or I'm by the way, look how I dress, I don't know these, but whatever the biggest, best brand is right now, you're a part of that club. And by buying that, you can show to the world, look at this, I am part of this club. Now I get invited to the best parties because they know, oh, they can afford that too. You can start being part of this. That is why people are spending money on these pictures. It's not really about the picture. It's not really about the right-click Save As. It's about actually owning something that is a symbol of being of ownership of something. It doesn't matter about the art whatsoever. So that's why they're spending so much money on this. They're part of a club. But now when you start thinking about it in this way, it's like, okay, well, then aren't all NFTs sort of like memberships? Like right now, several of you might have a membership to a gym. Isn't that sort of similar type of thing? Where it's like, okay, I have an ownership of the ability to actually do something. But now what happens if you can actually not have to rely on that one gym to actually tell you, yes, you own this thing? What if you yourself own the membership to that gym? And I can actually let somebody borrow it. Or let somebody loan it to somebody. Say like I'm going out of the country for a month. I'm going to go travel the world, but I have a year membership to the gym. I'm not going to use it. So what I do is say, somebody can actually rent my membership for a month for this much money. And you can do this all on-chain, programmed on-chain, and not have to worry or trust anybody that it would return back to you or that it's fake or anything of that sort, because it's all completely on-chain. And so this is actually the benefit to putting ownership on-chain that is trustless. You don't need to worry about a third party going away. Like, what happens if, like, say you create a piece of art and you sell the rights to that art on-chain. Yes, it can point to the actual image and everything, but really what they're buying is, I own this art. And maybe what you can do is you can give commercial license part of that ownership. In the actual ownership, say, I sold this and your photography. Like, what if you decide how people can use it by selling it? You say, yes, you can purchase my picture and you can put it on your website. You have commercial rights to this. Here's the actual outline. Here's the on-chain proof. You don't need to worry about any third party because it's all right there. That is the power of actual blockchain. So there's companies out there that are already doing this for people. One of my really good friends, Keatley, he has a company called Dequency. He's doing this in the music space. He has been in the music industry for over 20 years, and he specializes in a thing called sync licensing. What that means is it's licensing to use in other creative things. So like, you can buy this music to create a YouTube video with that music in it, and that's purchased in the sync licensing. So he has actually built a company called Dequency that puts all of this data, all of this licensing on-chain. Now, the cool part is if Dequency goes under, it's a startup, maybe it'll fail. Keatley, if you're watching this, you won't fail, I promise. But if he does, the license is still valid. It's still there. Now, you don't need to worry about Dequency still existing. You have that license. You can resell that license. But here's another great thing. And by the way, you asked, I'm rambling at this point, so if you want to stop me at any point, just here's another thing. So royalties. Right now, say you actually sell your license, your photograph or your pictures or whatever you end up doing, and you end up being popular. And at this point, you could actually program into the actual on-chain ownership logic on what happens when it changes ownership. It doesn't require any third party. So what you can do is say, every time that the ownership changes, the price paid, I get 4% for the rest of the infinity. So every single time that the picture is traded to somebody else, that license is traded to somebody else, you now get 3% of whatever it sells for. And you don't need to worry about if it happens, because it can't actually change ownership unless it goes through that logic. And that's the power of Web3.
Now that you talk about scarcity and licensing the work, there is this big problem that we have as creators, and it is time, because we very often have to sell our work at a very specific price at one point in time. But over the years, that piece of art or that song could evolve and became a huge hit and cost 100 times more than we originally get paid for it. So this kind of contracts allows us to change over the time how we charge for what we do. And I would like that you tell us more about, or if you have some examples of it, because right now we delegate, or we hope for some institutions to help us to do that, and they are taking
all your money.
Yeah, they're taking the money. They are profiting of that phenomena of time. So how can be that different with blockchain or Web3?
So one thing I just want to be very clear on is that there are services out there that they're providing that's helping get your name out, and they're providing actual services. These are valuable. The problem is that some of them are predatory. And the reason why they're predatory is because there's not another option. So what they're doing is not necessarily bad at all. Like you don't know how to market your art, you don't know how to get it on other people's hands. They can do that and they do it well. But you don't really have another option, so they charge you 80% of the fee or whatever. But now what blockchain does, it allows you to be able to do it all in a safe way, and so you could take 100% of it, but because there's another option, it decreases the cost of what they would be able to charge. So blockchain, the people in blockchain don't think that these third-party industries are actually evil. They are taking advantage of the situation, and they like to make money too, and there's just not another option. This makes it more fair. And one of the things that you'll get a lot from me is why I'm in this is because of fairness. I hate the big bully out there that are trying to actually control everybody's lives and actually dictate everything. And it's okay, they have a place. Like people that have skills and other things have places in a working ecosystem, but it always needs to have a check. You need to have another option to make things fair. And if there's not another option, they will take advantage of you every single time. Go back to kind of one thing I say about blockchain. Blockchain decreases centralization because centralization creates power. Power creates money, and money corrupts every single time. So if you can actually take it out at the actual base and make it so that things are more decentralized, so you own more of your stuff, it crumbles the entire tower. This doesn't mean that people can't make money on it. This doesn't mean, like people can't work hard. It just makes things more fair. And that is why I get up out of bed every day and work from my morning till night, making blockchain actually mainstream. So that people like you that aren't technical, that don't believe, I asked the question before, a lot of people got here, is like, who here thinks the world's a fair place? Nobody raised their hand. That's the thing that bothers me, is that we need to make the world a more fair place, and I believe blockchain is the first bit of technology that actually makes it more fair, not less fair. We're far from it. We are not there yet. We are brand new. You're hearing about blockchain, cryptocurrency, all of these things a lot because, the media likes to talk about millionaires getting rich overnight. That's happening. Most of the time it's not, so don't go and spend all your savings on it. But you're hearing a lot about the technology before it's really ready yet because of that. And just know there's a large number of people that are working on the infrastructure of blockchain to actually make it so that the mainstream can actually use it.
Now that you talk about institution or the middleman, we in the creative industries, we rely a lot on institutions. We rely on museums, galleries, events, platforms, and even in the public or local government, so they can be that middleman that manage to value and make all these transactions work around the arts and the creations. What is going to happen with those institutions, or how can an institution, even a university, which is a middleman between the knowledge and the students, how can those institutions transform or adapt to this new logic?
So what they do is they stop being the middleman and being a spoke on the actual wheel, where these services do actually provide value. It's just that they no longer need to stand in between the artist and the profit making. They can be part of the ecosystem. They can charge in a very transparent way rather than saying, give me your money up front or pay for this up front. They can say, I will do work, I will do a fair amount of work, and trustlessly, every sale that I make of yours, I'll take 10%. If you make sales outside of me, I get nothing. So it's just, these industries will still exist. They have to, because who here knows how to sell your art to the world? Don't. Maybe you do. I don't know. So there will be services out there, and they still know how to do this. It just makes that more fair, and they will just adopt the rails of decentralization. So this is one of the things I talk about blockchain. Decentralization is not a binary. It's not decentralized or not decentralized. It's a spectrum. And being fully decentralized is a huge pain in the butt. Like, you have to do a lot of work yourself. And most people here don't want to do that much work. Some people do, and because of that, they'll be able to make more money because they're putting more effort in. But there will always be people out there to help you to do things that you don't want to do for money. And that's okay. And that will always exist.
Okay. Let's dive into education, which is a great part of what we do here. The first thing is to talk about in order to get these technologies into our fields and to understand them. Do we need to learn new things? Do you
Yes.
think do we learn to code or get more technical about it? How can we change education in order to answer to that scenario?
I think the first thing that universities need to do is change their MBA program to teach decentralized business. Because I work with, I've been in crypto and blockchain since 2013, so a very long time. So I've seen lots of fresh MBAs come out, like, Harvard MBAs, like, I'm going to build a blockchain application. And they use all of their amazing knowledge of how to build businesses, and they apply it to the blockchain, and they screw it up. Because building a decentralized application, a decentralized company, is not the same as building a centralized company. Building a decentralized company is more like building a government. You are building an entire ecosystem that has a thing called game theoretical equilibrium. So game theory is the idea that it's a math theory that I'm not going to go because nerdy stuff. It just allows for actually a balance of inputs and outputs that becomes like a perfect balance, and that's what you need in an ecosystem. And so when MBA comes out and says, I'm going to build a blockchain company, and they try to build it in a centralized way, they're used to having more levers they can pull to force people to do what they want them to do. But with a decentralized company, a decentralized protocol, platform, whatever you want to call it, you don't have those same levers. You can't force people to do anything. You have to incentivize everybody to do what you want them to do. And so if you don't build a system that has proper incentives and has the same amount of faucets that you do have sinks, meaning the value out equal exactly the value coming back in, it will go to zero, and you'll have these huge blow-ups that you see on the internet because they don't build a proper economic system that needs to flourish. And so I believe that more economists and just people that actually specialize in building government systems will be the ones that come out and build better decentralized protocols. So that's one thing. The other thing that universities need to do is they need to actually let you know that these things exist. You don't need to be technical, or if you have to be technical, we didn't do our job. You don't need to actually be super technical unless you want to be. But you need to know that it exists and the values of doing this. So there's a research paper out there that I make everybody read. It's a research paper, so buckle up. But it's called Some Simple Economics of Blockchain. It's by Joshua Gans and Christian Catalini. It's a research paper that is not on the technicals of blockchain. It's on the economics of blockchain. And what is the actual true value of blockchain? Because you need to understand what the value is, not the buzzwords, not decentralization, not immutability, not blah, 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 all trustlessness, all of these things that you hear. You need to understand what the value of it is. And the best way to understand what blockchain can do is it lowers the cost of verification, which is very strong for what you guys are doing. What I mean by that is that anytime that there is a business expense to actually verify that something has happened, blockchain lowers that cost tremendously because you don't need that third party. Because every time you add a third party to it, it makes the actual cost of anything exponential. This is why licensing or royalties or anything is pretty much impossible for you to track as an individual because you don't have it would cost too much money to actually set this up. But blockchain brings that cost down so much that it gives the power to create even brand new industries that never were able to exist before. So I would say those two things. And of course, on the engineering side, teach blockchain. Obviously, there's new programming languages. There's new, like, what is the actual technicals of it? You guys don't care about this stuff, but universities should also teach that.
Okay, on your first point, on changing the mindset of business and projects, there is a question that I personally have, and it is that education, mostly in the history of humanity, has been unfortunately about being obedient, like learning to follow rules. And we are building these huge structures in our institutions when it is mostly about following a path, like getting grades and semesters and going into classes with a professor. But when you get this technology and you take out all the rules and you give people power to bring their own rules, that changes and requires a different ability for people, and it is to ask themselves, what do I want? I don't have to wait until someone tells me what I need or what I have to do. And what do you think about that? About how are we prepared to that scenario in which we have to take responsibility and be conscious about our decisions, rules, and all the stuff?
So I have to be careful here because I'm giving a talk in a university. But
You're gonna go after a couple hours of no
so
problem.
education is the most important thing. While you're not here for following rules. If you're here because you're following rules, you're probably going to be not do as well. You're here to be educated, and universities can educate you. You shouldn't be here to check a box. Like, you're like, oh, I need to get a degree. Don't be here for that. Be here because you need to learn. You need to actually better your skills and become more you, and you need to better the world. It's very difficult to make the world a better place if you follow rules, because the people the rules that you're following, they already set the bar. If you need to go above the bar, you need to educate yourself and then stretch further. If many people find that university is the best way to get educated, that's not the only way to get educated. I mentor at, actually I haven't for another year, but I used to mentor a lot at Harvard Business School. And the things that I always told them is learn more than even what you're learning here. Like, do your own thing. Go above and beyond. Start businesses and learn in your own way, because you need to actually push yourself outside of the box that you're in. Like, I myself, I can't really speak of going to university and what it is because I never went. I started coding when I was 13 years old. By the time I graduated high school, I was being paid to be an engineer. So it didn't make sense for me to go to university at that point, because I found out a way to educate myself in a way that is, self-study. That's okay. That's one direction. Many people go the other direction. My co-founder of one of my companies, he got his PhD from Brown when he was like 19 years old. And he went the academic way, and he's one of the smartest, and pushed himself outside the actual the box and changing the world. So whatever direction that you want to go is possible. The most important thing is to educate yourself, and whatever you actually go, find good professors. There's great professors here that actually care about that too. They don't want you here to check the box, and if the professor here is all they actually want you to do is check the box, it's a bad professor. They want to see you be better than them. Let them help you and push yourself outside that box.
About that, how can we, I don't know, reskill or upskill professors and faculty and institutions? Because if sometimes the change starts with changing the way in which we manage resources, and at this point, a large amount of resources are in the hands of people with power. So how can we change that, or for professors or faculty that are interested in learning all this and changing the way they think about education, how can we get into that?
So I'll talk about personally. I have learned most through my failures. I have learned most doing things that nobody else has ever done before. I think that professors should focus on giving the ability for students to do things that aren't maybe necessarily a strict curriculum, but more of a goal-based curriculum. You are trying to do X, Y, Z. I'm not going to tell you how to do that. I can help you try to do that, but I want you to figure out how to do it yourself and be more loose on the actual curriculum to be rather than like, okay, did you check these boxes, and more of a abstract of like, did you push yourself outside of the box, and how did you get there? That is, I think, in my personal journey, I have only actually learned, now that I think about it, I've only learned through failure and not learned through doing something I already knew how to do. So that is one of the things that I would say, that be more open to what people can try and do. And I would say, as a professor, don't be scared to let your students be better than you, which sounds weird because you have all this expertise, everything, but let them be themselves and really push.
Okay, about this relationship of power that sometimes comes into education. This is a personal question, but this is a huge change, probably changing how humanity organize themselves. And at this point, power and resources are in the hands of very, I don't know how to put it, selfish people around the world, for example, in finance. Do you think it's possible to actually get power out from them? It is possible to change a world that mostly doesn't want to be changed by these kind of institutions or powers. Is this an easy thing to do or a possible thing to happen in the future?
Yes, but they won't give it to you. They won't give you the power. They won't give you everything. You have to take it. One of the questions I have all the time is like, oh, you're working so hard and building these decentralized protocols. All it will take is a Google or a Microsoft to build their own, and then you'll be irrelevant. They will never do this because this means they lose power. They they don't want this to happen, because as soon as this happens, they no longer actually have the power to dictate and make all of this money. So yes, it is very possible to take the power from the people that are making the decisions. But, and this is actually what allows blockchain, like why I think blockchain is important, is that it doesn't require you to compete at the same game. You don't need to build a institution that can compete with them and then give it away. What you can do is you can actually build smaller applications that only need 100 people, and that's all you need, because it's peer to peer. You can compete on their level with the individual with less overhead. So they won't say yes, it's okay. In fact, they will tell you no, this is not okay. You'll start seeing governments come out with regulation of how to do things and to do. But the truth is that you need to actually just make sure that when you're thinking in this way, you're thinking about the individual, and that you're not trying to build a central power to compete against that central power, that institution. You are bringing it back down to the human level, and you're expanding the middle class. You're expanding the actual everybody to be their own individual.
Okay, in order to spread this idea that needs people in order to make it work, we have here the privilege to hear it from you, an expert, but most of the people, they don't have that possibility. And last year we saw with artificial intelligence, we saw ChatGPT, and it was a very easy way to understand the power of artificial intelligence. And in blockchain, we saw NFTs and we saw cryptocurrency, and that didn't went entirely well.
We're not done yet.
Okay.
We're early. We're early.
Yeah. So I was curious about I don't know what is going to be the chat GPT for blockchain. What is going to be that piece of software or product that is going to let the big audience understand this potential?
So one thing I want to start with, you called me an expert. If I was such an expert, if all of the people that are in building this were actually experts, blockchain would be mainstream. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We're figuring things out. We actually need you. You guys have the ideas on how to actually make this thing work. And if we don't have you, it will never work, because we are working our butts off and we haven't made it happen yet. So don't be worried of like, oh, he's done it for so long. I would say look at the opposite. I've done it so long and it's still not there yet. You are our future, not us. So I'll start there saying, sure, I've been doing this for a long time, but at the end of the day, without you, this will never work. So please don't be nervous. Don't be anxious about it, about the lack of knowledge you have. Everybody's starting where you are. And not only that, the people who are in it don't know what the hell we're doing. We're figuring things out ourselves. So come on in, make waves, bring your new ideas, and tell us how we should do it. Now, to answer your question, what do you think will be the next big thing? I actually think that both cryptocurrency and NFTs are very, very powerful. And the issue is that I think the media, and I think that's because of how popular they became so early, it put a bad taste in people's mouth. There's scammers out there. Be careful when you're actually doing cryptocurrency. Do not click on things you don't know. You will lose all of your money. Be smart about it. So if I properly scared you enough. But the truth is this technology is extremely powerful. I believe that on-chain ownership, what I was talking about earlier, is the chat GPT, that is the big thing that will actually happen. Imagine this. I kind of hit on this earlier, but like, imagine all of your, so one of the things that we're doing at Voy, so Voy, you said everything in Spanish, so I didn't actually know if you said what I did do right now, but one of the projects that I'm working on is we're launching a new blockchain. We're launching an entire new protocol, and that's called Voy. This is actually the first and only t-shirt of this one, so I wore it today for the first time. But anyway, we are focusing on a single industry, and that industry is membership infrastructure. Why we're actually focusing on this industry is because, like, how many of you out here belong to some type of club or like anything, right? Like church or a football league or something that you're part of, like a club or something, right? How many? Nobody's raising their hand. We've got one person. You guys don't know gyms or anything? Well, anyway, you are. You are 100% with some type of groups. I think you're just shy. The truth is that if you had the actual ability to actually own your own membership, that becomes identity. That becomes a decentralized identity. Who are you? I'm a Boy Scout. I'm a Girl Scout. I'm a member of this church. All of you you're a member of this university. You all go here. What if your degrees, all of your extra education, is something that you own, but is actually 100% provable? Now, you don't need to worry about if a university is hacked. You don't need to worry about if the university goes under. Some of them do. Probably not this one. This one looks really nice. But if you could actually have that record forever, that is your identity. That is who you are. Now, some identities, some memberships, like a degree, you shouldn't be able to actually trade. But that is also customizable of like which type of memberships or identities are tradable. Your gym one, like I talked about earlier, or a spa, or I don't know, whatever you do, you might want to be able to actually sample a new gym, but you don't want to actually do a full year. What if you know that your buddy has a membership there? Say, hey, let me borrow that for a day. And you own that membership, you own that identity. So there's a company out there right now called ClassPass. It's really big in the United States. It's growing tremendously. They're doing this right now in the Web2 space. And it's extremely expensive because there's so much overhead. With blockchain, you can have this exact same company for free because you yourself will own that identity. Another great thing that Voy is focusing on that I think is going to be very huge are loyalty points. So I'm sure you guys collect points in one way or another for different things. Most loyalty points are closed loop systems. You go to a Starbucks, you get Starbucks points. You can use Starbucks points at Starbucks. But what if you could actually trade those Starbucks points for, I don't know if you have Pinkberry here, like Pinkberry points. You could say, hey, I want to exchange my Starbucks points for Pinkberry points. Now what you're doing is you're having a fluid peer-to-peer economy over these loyalty points. And it is okay to the individual stores because, number one, they have discoverability. More people will come in, try their stuff. And it's not an extra cost to them because they've already accounted for those loyalty points in their books. So now what's happening is that you have a flourishing economic system of loyalty points that work almost like credit card points that you can use everywhere, but they're closed loop because you can actually trade them from person to person. So like this to me is the thing that will really push blockchain into the mainstream. The ability to own your own identity, if that's a membership or what have you.
Okay. Talking about identity, I would love to dive into a subject that I really love, and it is spirituality and almost religion. We have managed to take a lot of our lives into the digital realm, but there's this thing like spirituality, religion, personal beliefs that somehow are outside mainly of this technology. And blockchain is a very good tool for building identity, for make transactions with information privately or massively or very selective with people or entities that you want. Do you think that blockchain could help into that kind of aspect of human life, or do you think that in the future we could see maybe a digital religion or a digital spirituality based on identity and how we manage to connect with the rest of the human race?
Who are you?
I'm a lot of different things.
Who are you? Are you your name? Is that what you are? No, your name is a pointer to your past experiences, what you actually do. But what if you don't want people to know everything about you? What if you want them to know I am a university student? What if you want them to know that you are an amazing football player? What if you want them to know anything about you, but you don't want them to know the rest? You are not your name. You're not your social security number. You probably don't have that here, or your identifier number. You are a collection of your beliefs, your wants, your desires. Blockchain actually allows for this in a similar type of way, where that's your actions, your identities, your memberships are all on chain and they're trustless and provable. But you don't need to disclose to people your entire identity. You can actually disclose the parts that you actually want. So in my opinion, what blockchain allows for is for people to truly express their true identity and not have to express their total identity unless it's required. So I think blockchain actually helps a lot with this. We're not there yet because obviously you need the real world to work with this on-chain digital identity. But it's people are working towards this, and I think it's super powerful because I think go back to the whole thing is that I think that the digital world has made everybody more robotic. And I think that blockchain has the ability to actually bring it back down to being a human again. It feels weird, but you kind of have to, you probably have to do some psychedelics, everything to truly understand it. But yes, like it's going in that direction.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Let's hear some questions. No sé si hayan
Don't be shy.
preguntas, inquietudes. Para que te oigan en el stream.
Well, the benefits of NFT and blockchain for creators are like clear, but how do you think new audience and content consumers can be convinced like to enter this world, taking into account that in the web 2 everything is practically free, So
I think the way that it is actually done, I think that it still needs to be free for the end consumer, but there's a step in between the person displaying to the end consumer. they are assumingly making money. They should be the ones paying. So, for example, like this goes back to what I was talking about with sync licensing. Say you are making a video and you want to use a certain music. You should pay for that license for that. And then one of the great things about blockchain is that you can actually, the license can also be a payment rail. And so what this means is that you can kind of connect licenses like Legos. And then when you sell your product, it filters through the licenses and automatically pays out all of the people that were belong until the end user gets what they want and desire. So this is kind of how that would end work. And then the consumer can, by the way, not everything is free. Like right now, if you go and use the internet, you feel like Facebook is free or TikTok is free or anything. If something is free, you are the product. You're paying with something. So somebody is paying. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So it's just a matter of the people that are paying, they pay the right people.
Thank you.
Question way back there.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
So does your proposal eliminate the trademark and patent lawyer and the copyright lawyer?
I mean, I hope we eliminate all lawyers, but that's a personal preference. Sorry to all my lawyer friends out there. I love you, but not like all the way. I think what it is it doesn't eliminate them. It makes them cheaper, because what it does is like there still needs people that understand law and understand these things. It's just that the data out there is actually more clear, and they don't have to spend as much time fighting their fights because the data is out there for anybody to see. So no, lawyers, you're not losing your job. You just have to think about things differently. No problem.
Una otra pregunta.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
I would like to know if there is a blueprint to create Web3 projects.
No. So this goes back to the things like what I was saying before. We don't know what the hell we're doing. We're figuring things out. This is probably the hardest things out there. So back a long time ago, when people were exploring the world, that's similar to where we are with blockchain right now. When people left Europe to travel, they kind of were like, we're going that direction. Where are you going? I don't know where we're going, but we're going in that direction. So let's make sure we have enough food and everything and hope we don't die. And that's kind of where we are with blockchain today, is that we have an idea of what it can be and how we can do it. Nobody really knows for sure. We're exploring new worlds. We're exploring new lands. There's risk that comes with that reward, of course. You might die on the way, but you might discover a new land. You might be able to discover new riches somewhere. But there is no blueprint. There is nothing you can read. This space is moving so fast. By the time someone can write down how to do something, it's already out of date. So like with Voy, the protocol that we're launching, we've rewritten our white paper, which in a white paper is like the long document of what we're doing or why we're doing it. It's become out of date within maximum a month after we've written it, because of how fast things change and how much we learn. And so you need to just consume as much data as you want with an open mind and realize that most of the people that are talking don't know what the hell they're talking about. So you have to read with your brain, like really analyze and think what they're saying and why they're saying it, not necessarily what they're saying. So when you're in this space, be an explorer. Find the new lands, change the world, and there's not a map to it.
Hi, Chris.
Hi.
I wanted to ask you, so let's say we are creators and we want to provide help with these new technologies. And I wanted to ask you how we as creators can help these new technologies with our resources that we have to offer and ideas.
Wonderful. So I think number one, I think creator is a little broad. What type of creator you are, I think really matters.
A communication designer.
Communication designer. What type of medium are you creating?
So far, well, actually, we're creating an app right now. But besides that, like, I can say like strategies of communication.
Okay, I think so UX UI, right?
I'd say yes.
Okay, so blockchain needs you so bad right now because it is full of smart people that don't know how to build product. It's people that love math and programming and get what this is. They don't know how to actually make things usable. So the best thing to do is to start finding those nerds that are building things. They live in crypto Twitter. They live out there and they're talking about blockchain. Reach out to people like me. I love connecting to people, to designers and everything. And the first step really is you will have to understand how to design in a decentralized world, because using an application like a decentralized application is not the same as using a centralized application. There's a couple more steps. So you have to understand those steps and figure out a way to wallpaper over them, because those steps suck. And so one of the things that Voy is doing is we are making a wallet protocol, the thing that you communicate with the actual blockchain, invisible. And we're doing this, I'm not going to, because you're not technical, I'm not going to tell how we're doing it, but what we're doing is we're making it so that you as an end user can actually use blockchain applications like you use web applications. So we're working on a protocol to make that go away, but that doesn't exist yet. So today, building for other blockchains like Ethereum or any of the other ones out there, you have to understand what the steps are to use the blockchain. Like step 1, you have to make sure that the person has a token. Step 2, you have to make sure that they have a wallet. Step 3, you have to then create the transactions and then pass the transaction to the wallet, and they have to sign the wallet and send it back to you, and then you have to send it. You have to understand that, because you need to understand how. Like, but it's the same thing with user testing. Have you guys done user testing? Yeah, have you got product? Well, if you haven't, you will. You watch people, how they use applications, and then you make them better. It's not much different than what you're doing already. It's just understanding at a more deeper level of how blockchain works. But tons of opportunity here, tons.
Thank you.
So many questions, I love it.
No, I'm not going to make a question. I only want to comment something about the conference. And the thing is, or what for me is interesting about Web3 is that maybe show us as a society that value had different dimensions. Because when you think about value in Web2, I think the people think only in money, no? Only money. I know that money is the big part of the value there. But what I mean is that you understand what is the meaning of money, because you say, as Sophia asked you about how the consumer understand or want to go to the Web3, is because you have the traceability of where is going the money, where is the value of every people that are working on the same system or the same ecosystem to give you this product, whatever, image or sound or whatever. And I think that is a good thing for me as a person and as a creative, is that in Web3, we understand that we are not alone, and that the money is not going to one person, and we are working not as an individual, but as a collective to construct value between us. And every one of us, and every one of us is becoming what they are doing for the job. And
right. It's a transfer of value. And that's really what it's all about. And one of the questions I always ask somebody is, I do this in the United States, is how much is a dollar worth? Or so how much is a Colombia peso worth? It is worth as much as somebody will give you for it. It doesn't actually have value. It's a pointer at value. And so everything, like, you need to think of terms of transfer of value outside of actual money, because at the end of the day, your government decides how much a Colombian peso is worth. They can print more, they can burn more, they can do the same thing with the dollar. They created like over $1 trillion more last year. So think about an actually transfer of value and where the value is going, and less about the actual dollar and the dollar amount, and helps you really kind of think things through better.
I have now a question about how do you any experience, or have you heard about open research, and you think that maybe this Web3 could be a good way to go through this open science or open research?
So I don't fully understand what you're asking me, but one of the really great things about Web3 in general is that almost everybody builds everything in the open. So you like everything. So Voy, Reach, Humble, all three of the companies that I run right now, you can actually see all the code, everything online, and it's free to use. And the reason why we do this is because it's more like philosophical. Like, we are too early to compete. The opportunity is too great to close the doors and say, nope, this is mine, because we need to open the doors and have new minds come out and look at it and say, oh, this could be better in this way, and go build it your way, because people will still stay, and you'll just bring more people. And then hopefully we can look at what you did in the open and we can adopt it. And there's just so much opportunity in Web3 that we build everything in the open.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you can go to my GitHubs and see every bit of code that we've ever created.
Good morning.
Buenos dias.
In my case, I didn't know anything about these programs, like these kind of technologies. But as a designers, what will you recommend us to get started in these things, in these new things? Because I think that this is the future of the technology. So
right now, the best thing to do is, there's a thing out there called crypto Twitter. It's a cesspool of scams and horribleness, but there's awesome things there too. So if you're ready to be an explorer, if you're ready to set out sail and maybe die, crypto Twitter is your sea. So you listen to people, this is the part where I was saying you need to listen and read with an open mind and assume everybody's lying to you. And then do your own research after what people say, and then learn yourself. It's hard. I want to be very clear. This is only for the people that are ready to be the explorers. Not everybody wanted to be explorers back then. People were going, "You're Christopher Columbus, you're crazy. This is fine here." And he's like, "No, let's go over here." You need to be the crazy one. Say, "I am not happy with the world today." This is why, once again, who's here happy with the world today? And if you are, great. Be happy. I love that. If you're not happy, do something about it. That is the thing I would tell you. And it's going to be hard, because there is no map. There is nobody telling you what to do, because you are the ones creating the path. And you will go the wrong direction. And then you go, whoa, I need to go back this direction. And you'll keep finding your way. And then you will create the path for those people that don't want to be the crazy ones. That is where we are right now. And I'm sure there's people in the crowd right here that believe that way. Not all of you, and that's okay. But some of you are, and that's who we need.
thank you.
¿Alguna otra pregunta?
So one more question.
I got a question about open banking. There's a term called open banking that is based on the idea of trading your information in some sense. But as a designer, I would like to know, how can I do to improve the products that I'm creating while we are transcending to this Web3 concept or idea?
Give me more information to work on.
Well, I work on the fintech industry, and we have some called open banking. The main idea of open banking is that you can, in some extent, trade your information with other banks, so you can transfer money or do stuff like that.
So I'm not very familiar with open banking specifically, so it's going to be difficult for me to talk to you about that specifically. But in fintech in general, that was the first use case of blockchain. The idea of a currency or multiple currencies that can have different rules, like sound theory, sound money theory, that Bitcoin has, where there's only a set amount of Bitcoin that will ever be. You don't need to worry about anybody inflating the number or deflating or anything of that sort. And building this in a way that is trustless. It doesn't even need a bank. You don't need to trust a bank to say how much money that you have, which is super, super powerful, especially in countries that might not necessarily trust their government. It's very important. Now, one of the things that I believe open banking would be for is more for like lending and trusting that somebody's going to pay something back. Now, there are lots of actually tools out there or applications that are being built. I have friends that built lending platforms. Right now, the only ones that truly work are over collateralized lending, meaning that you put up more collateral than you're actually taking out. So it's kind of a weird lending situation, but it also works because say if you have collateral in one thing, it's like saying you are putting up your house and you are borrowing 10% of it, but anybody would be willing to do that because you're putting up way more than that, but you still live in your house, you still own the house, you're just putting up as collateral. Doing that in blockchain is a very similar thing, and is what most people do, is that they put up an amount of cryptocurrency that has a value. They don't lose that cryptocurrency because they're just putting up for collateral, and then they are borrowing a set amount of dollars and then spending those dollars. And then the idea is that they will eventually pay it back and still have all of that cryptocurrency. And it's all done in a trustless way. Other people are working on under collateralized loans. And what this has done is baked on the decentralized identity that we were talking about earlier, is that the over collateralized loan, they don't care who you are because the value is there and you can actually get the value if they end up defaulting. But a under collateralized requires identity, requires an ability to have trust that this person that is asking for this loan will pay it back. And that's nobody, I haven't found like a good solution for that yet, but I think that is coming. I think that personally, the only way that truly works is when decentralized identity is much further ahead so that people can use their identity as collateral, but it's not mainstream enough to actually have enough value to use it as collateral. Does that make sense? I probably didn't answer your specific question, but that's because I don't know exactly open banking and what the use case is at. But tell you what, I will research it and then I'll be able to answer it next time.
Thanks.
Hi. I wanted to know how people can be sure something is authentic in these kind of things, because I don't really understand.
Assume it's not.
But that's what I'm asking, because I don't know, someone else can say he's a graduated designer, but how we can know that's true?
Gotcha. So what I mean by assume it's not is like when you're like out in crypto Twitter, those crazy lands, anybody can say anything and say it with 100,000 followers, and you're like, oh, you got to believe this. Don't believe them. We are in the uncharted waters right now that you need to kind of do your own research. You need to understand who is saying this and what is the thing that is backing that up. So if say like a university decided to use blockchain for their accreditations. The university would say, here's the decentralized application, here's the interface, we endorse this. This is not coming from our database, this is actually on the blockchain, anybody can have it, but we have actually put our stamp of approval. And because how blockchain works, so cryptography, the crypto and the cryptocurrency, is that they can sign a signature to say this is real. And you can trust the university that what they said is real is actually real because of it's mathematically sound. You can't fake that. Does that make sense? So like that's kind of how the trust assist works, is that everybody that interacts with the blockchain uses math to prove that they are them.
I will go further into that question, because you can that signature can be made by a university, but with blockchain you can also create a signature made by a community of designers that, as a community of professionals, can tell that you are who you are. So it's a new whole way to understand accreditation for education, for example. Any other questions?
And if you want to ask the question only to me and you're shy, I don't know what we're doing, Angela. Do we have to go somewhere, or will we be here for a little bit? I'll be here for a little bit. If you have any questions you want to ask me directly, I'll be happy to answer.
Can you tell us how is the process to make something go to the blockchain? I mean, I'm a designer, and then I create something, and then what happened?
Okay. There we go. So how it works, how the blockchain works, I'm going to try to explain this as precise as I possibly can. So it is a series of computers that have storage that are spread across all over the world. And when you want to make a change to this database, you can only add to the database. You can't change what the database says. Okay? So you make a change, and then you sign it with your signature, and you send it to one of the computers and says, this is the change I want to make to the database. And that computer looks at it and goes, okay, the numbers check out. I'm going to then share it with the rest of the world, all the rest of the computers. And then they share it all out, and then they have a vote. And they say, yep, we agree that this is going to be added to the database. And if they all agree, they then make that new addition to the database, and now the database is now, and then it keeps going like that. That's why it's a blockchain. So it's a chain of blocks. Now, what do you actually put on the blockchain as a designer? So blockchains themselves are not very good at storing lots of information. Your images that you're creating wouldn't actually be stored on the blockchain, or shouldn't be stored on the blockchain. So what you do is that you create your image, and your image is ones and zeros, right? It's math. It's what you see is not, it's not painted on your hard drive or whatever. It's a series of ones and zeros to actually represent what you see. So what you can do is you take that file, and then you hash it. Then you run it through a algorithm, and it spits off this really, really long series of numbers and letters. And then you take that and you put that on the blockchain. It's not the actual the image; it's the representation of that image. So now what happens is, if you pass that image to somebody else, they run it through the same algorithm. That number that spits out, they then look at the blockchain and says, "Yep, these numbers match. I know that this is the same thing." Did I do a good job? Like, not getting too technical? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
¿Alguna otra duda? ¿Pregunta?
I'm assuming everybody left because I had class and not because they were bored, right?
I would like to mention one last thing about Chris, and it is that I thought that Chris was here in Colombia because he had business or some sort of thing to do, but he just told me that he was here just to meeting us. So this gesture talks about generosity, which is the main thing about blockchain, which you don't need to be, you can be connected with everyone if you want it. So thank you, Chris, for being
It's
here.
the whole idea with blockchain, is that it opens up the world to be equal, and it doesn't matter where you're born, where you're from. Blockchain has the ability to make that a much more equal place. And got to tell you one thing that I learned about Colombia that makes me smile so much. It's you guys are so sensitive about how hard you shut car doors. That's
Yes, we are.
This is something I learned. Both first time I was in Colombia, I learned this, and then I was reminded again because it's just a weird thing I love it. But anyway, let's see.
Yes, we are. We I don't know, somehow think that if you shut the door very hard, the car will fall apart. So, but well,
I travel a lot, and this is the only place.
yes, I know. Thank you, Chris.
My pleasure.
Gracias a todos. Si tienen dudas, va a estar aquí un rato para que le pregunten. Gracias a todos por venir. Démosle un aplauso a Chris, por favor.
Thank you.